Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. President-elect Donald Trump's imminent arrival in the White House signals trouble for the Trudeau administration. Now, Canada's economy is sluggish, and if Trump makes good his promise of a flat 10% tariff on all imports, this would mean trade disputes and a potential recession because 75% of Canada's exports go to the United States. And to add to that are the frosty relations between Trudeau, Trump, and Trump's new best friend, Elon Musk. Elon Musk, in fact, just tweeted that Trudeau's days are numbered. Now, this could be good news for New Delhi because under Justin Trudeau, ties between India and Canada are at the worst they have been with any Western democracy in recent years. Joining me on the News9 Plus show to discuss the potential Canada-US frosty relations and what this means for India are Ambassador Suresh K Goel, Major General Sanjay Meston, Surinder Singh Lali, political analyst, and in the studio I have with me my colleague Aditya Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Aditya, I want to start by asking you this. Was Jagmeet crying yesterday when he spoke about what Trump meant for Canada?
Well, you know, the first statement from Jagmeet Singh of NDP in Canada was that we feel crushed.
Right.
And that is the state of the mind.
Right.
And, you know, after the US elections, all eyes are now on the Canadian elections.
Yes.
That are slated for sometime in the mid of 2025.
Right.
But there are many expectations that with the political turmoil currently underway,
it could be
much earlier.
Yes.
It could be much earlier.
Right.
And the current approval ratings are disastrous for Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
In fact, Jagmeet Singh has better approval ratings than Justin Trudeau.
Singh has better approval ratings than Justin Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau.
Right.
And the entire Liberal Party of Justin Trudeau is in fact doing an internal rebellion against Justin Trudeau and saying that we don't want you.
Right.
We will find a person who is accommodative, who has leadership skills, and who's much better than you, an acceptable face.
Yes.
So that is what is happening right now.
Right.
When it comes to India, you know, India has shown immense patience.
Yes.
India has done whatever is possible under the rule book of the law and under the ambit of the diplomacy.
Right.
But unfortunately, Justin Trudeau hasn't been really cooperative.
Yes.
Any of the agencies under Justin Trudeau, be it the Foreign Ministry, be it the Prime Minister's office, be it the CSIS or the RCMP, have not really done work result-oriented as per the bilateral cooperation treaties.
They've in fact been weaponized, if you see the narrative in the last couple of weeks.
I mean, this morning there was a statement put out by the Peel Regional Police in Brampton saying that 3 Hindus have been charged and will be arrested immediately for rioting and for violence outside a Hindu temple. Now imagine the mockery of the law in Canada. There are Khalistanis who are standing outside a Hindu temple who have no business there.
Running
riot,
they are provoking.
With
swords and sticks and
you know, they have a Canadian police officer with them in plain clothes who is also protesting. Imagine that. A government officer, a police officer of Brampton Police is with the Khalistanis and since has been suspended now. But the reality is that Khalistanis have been provoking and there should be action ideally against the Khalistanis who are designated terrorists, who are extremists, part of designated groups as well. But no action so far by the Canadian government or the police. And instead, it is the victims who are now being blamed, and there's a social media narrative being built against the victims entirely.
Victim shaming that's on in social media, as we just saw. But then there's that other second front that seems to be opening up in Justin Trudeau's backyard, which is in the United States. And Ambassador Goel, I wonder if you saw that tweet by Elon Musk, where he says that, you know, literally he said that time is up for Trudeau and he's going to be elected out very soon. You know, how do you see this potential for, you know, the relationship between Trump and Trudeau? They've not had the best of ties in the last term that Trump was president as number 45. Do you see the prospect of, you know, frosty relations between Trump and Trudeau and what this means for India really?
I'm slightly perplexed here really, to be very frank. The fact is that it's very clear that whether whoever is saying it, that Trudeau has no chance of coming back as the Prime Minister at the next election. In any case, he's gone. He's gone. Therefore, there's no doubt. But his behavior, even at the existing point in time, of this kind of a blatant encouragement to the Khalistani element, I don't even call them Sikh. They are not sick really, but they're Palestini terrorists who are being encouraged by the various parts of the government in Canada. I don't know why he's encouraging them at all, because he knows that he can't win. And eventually, whoever comes in the government, they are going to take cognizance of what happened during this time. And the chicken will come home to roost first.
So, here's the question, Ambassador Goel. The fact that, it is well known that the relationship is going through a crisis, India and Canada. But, the fact that now you have a potential Cold War that could develop between the United States and Canada. Of course, Trudeau has said that they have the most excellent of relationship, unlike any other in the world. But, the fact that given the fact that Donald Trump has not been a big admirer of Justin Trudeau, could that actually... I was coming
to that, yes.
Could that actually give him a lot of, things to worry about in the, in the months ahead?
You see, the point, the reason I'm perplexed and I'm slightly not certain about how it is going to pan out is that the Americans' behavior, the governmental behavior is run not just by the president. There are so many parts to the government. And very often you hear about the deep state. I mean, there are people within the government who have different interests. For example, if you will recall Pakistan. Even at the time when the US president during Bush's time, they wanted to develop good relations with India. But the Pentagon had different ideas completely. Afghanistan was driving the whole dynamics. Therefore, what I'm saying here is that Trump may have frosty relations with Trudeau. Elon Musk may not like him, and whoever comes in after 1 year will be a different kettle of fish altogether. But given the kind of institutional relationship between the Americans, between the US government and Canada, I'm not quite sure how it's going to pan out. But all I'm hoping is that whoever comes after this will certainly look at the relationship in a different way. And then India, USA, Canada probably could look at a greater kind of a relationship amongst each other.
11 months from now, and as that person that Trump was replying to said, I can't wait 11 months for Justin Trudeau to go. But General Meston, the point that Ambassador Goel was making, the fact that, while personalities might have their differences, it is really the state apparatus, the so-called deep state that actually has permanent interests. Do you think this is the fact that Trump and Trudeau don't have the best of relations, could that be overcome by, say, the state, Washington, saying that, look, they have a long-standing alliance with Canada, and this could possibly, iron out things for Justin Trudeau in the months ahead? What's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever Ambassador has stated, Ambassador Goel, I tend to agree. But one thing we have to keep in mind is we have to see also the personality of President Trump. Trump, by nature, he is a pusher, he is a mover, and I can put it bluntly, he is a bulldozer. And if Elon Musk has stated this now in his tweet, in his response to the Canadian citizen, he has clearly stated that he will go. His time is up. So I think he speaks now on behalf of the US President designate.
He speaks for the US President designate. And Surinder Singh Lali, you've just heard, what Indians, people of Indian origins, Hindus and Sikhs who are not, fans of a separatist movement in Canada, what they're going through. Aditya just explained to you. Do you see things being different when it comes to Donald Trump administration in the United States? Will Justin Trudeau have to think twice before pushing the agenda that he's pushing, the fact that our panelists just told you the kind of agenda that he's pushing?
Thank you, sir. And the most beautiful part of being Donald Trump is to expect the unexpected. So I'm not going to put my money on what Donald Trump said last. Because he's an extremely transactional individual and he comes from the state of New York where I lived for a long time. So he's a fast food kind of a guy. And I wouldn't put my money on what he said last because he can simply, he's like a rotating door. I mean, whatever last his advisors tend to blow into his ear and he goes, from the rooftops. I mean, last he was in India, he was talking about Harley Davidson, which is only a few $1 million company. And, bankruptcy, and he was trying to stake the entire relationship on that.
Yes.
But
yes.
you know what surprises me is that when was regime change part of Elon Musk's job description? I mean, the gentleman in the tweet asked him that,
yes.
you know, we want a regime change in Canada. So, so when was that part of the job description? And I want to add two more things.
Yes.
That, you know, the level of penetration in Canada is to the point where the cop, you know, instead of, arresting 3 of Hindu victims, Harinder Sohi is the cop who's part of the, the police force in Peel. And he was earlier also seen outside Toronto, and now, in this protest. I mean, what happened to the Canadian intelligence? It is one of the Hindu victims chanting on the video saying, oh, that's Canadian Khalistani, that's Canadian Khalistani.
Yes, absolutely.
So which rock is the RCMP and the police, living under? And one more point is, even if you look at it, out of the 338 member parliaments, only 2 member parliaments, Chandra Arya, and Kevin Wong, who's an individual, have gone on record to use the K word in their condemnation.
Right.
Otherwise, nobody on Canadian soil had the audacity or the guts or the gumption to.
No one has the guts to call out say the K word. Indeed, of course. Thank you.
They were using Khalistani flags to beat people like a stick. So that ought to give you an idea of the mess and the cancer in all aspects of Canadian dispensation. The K elements have penetrated.
The K elements have penetrated indeed. And Surinder, I must just tell you that when you asked about Elon Musk's job description, he actually began with a post calling the German Chancellor a fool. And that's how the discussion, played out. And from Germany, he went to North America and Canada. But, I'm going to bring in Aditya on this. Aditya, how is the External Affairs Ministry, our MEA, reacting to this prospect of a second front opening up in Justin Trudeau's backyard? The fact that we have an unpredictable Donald Trump to deal with, as our panelists has told us, but so do the Canadians. Trudeau also has not just Donald Trump, but he has Elon Musk as well to worry about. How is the MEA reacting to this prospect of a second front for Justin Trudeau?
Come to think of it, Elon Musk, even before commenting on Canada, commented on Germany.
Yes.
And the German government has collapsed.
Right.
And there are talks now until January, perhaps there would be a transition likely. So this is happening with the socialist government, with Trudeau, a similar fate, which is a consensus across ideologies that Trudeau will not remain as a prime minister. But I think Modi government is prepared.
Yes.
Modi government has dealt with Trump already. You saw that massive event that took place at the Narendra Modi Stadium, where Trump was there.
Namaste.
He loved it. In fact,
Trump.
Modi was also in US, and he had almost declared Trump as a winner in the last elections.
Right.
We know it went south completely, and there was a criticism.
Off by about 4 years.
Yes.
Or 5 years.
He predicted it well in advance. But as of now, I believe that Modi, Jaishankar, and the Modi government know how to deal with Trump.
Right.
Yes, he may have big asks when it comes to trade, when it comes to defense. But there would be strategic partnership, and this partnership would be discussed in private.
Yes.
There won't be much chatter in the public domain, for instance, like the US has been doing in the last 4 years and even before that, where certain issues are used to accuse India, to build a certain narrative, and then arm twist into
You're
some
talking
kind
of
of
the leaks that were going out to the US media, and in that, especially in that FBI trial.
So that propaganda, that narrative being built and used for arm twisting. But the biggest of all, after Trump coming to power, is what will happen to the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Hamas conflict. I believe, at least on the Russia-Ukraine front, there could be some significant developments. Putin has already agreed to talk with Trump on the conclusion of the war as to how that could be met. We know that they are on speaking terms, and they are perhaps as close as we can call them friends. And at the same time, on the Israel-Hamas front as well, we may not see an immediate conclusion, but certainly a pathway being created towards some kind of a consensus, the new reality that they spoke about in Gaza.
Good points, Aditya. In fact, let's ask our panelists quickly about this. I know we are talking about Trudeau and Trump and, of course, Elon Musk, but let's just go over to the panelists and ask them what they think about the possibilities that a Russia-Ukraine war, an end could be in sight. It's possibly going to enter its 4th year next year. But Ambassador Goel, do you see the possibility of Russia-Ukraine war ending under Donald Trump's watch? I mean, this is certainly a deal that he'd like to strike, and given the fact that he's had a relationship, a very warm relationship with President Putin. Your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. I think, let us face it really. I mean, what is certain is that Trump is going to stop pumping American financing into the Ukraine war.
Yes.
I mean, even if the financing was coming back to its own military complex, it's a very different thing altogether. But I think he's going to stop putting money into the Ukraine war. But does it mean that NATO, not NATO, but Europe, how will Europe react to it? Only yesterday, there was a kind of I forget who made the statement, but there was a call for Europe to get united after Trump became the president. Right. Now, what does that mean really? If Americans withdraw their financing, would Europeans actually come forward to sustain the Ukrainian war? I don't know. These are uncertainties, and therefore, at the moment, it's going to be very difficult to say how it is going to pan out, except saying that, yes, there would be kind of factors now coming in where Zelensky will face increased difficulty, but it could go either way. Number two, Sandeep, do give me a minute, because I wanted to react to about
please go ahead,
India
Ambassador.
India and the USA. You see, the good thing about the USA now under Trump presidency is that neither Trump nor Elon Musk nor any one of them really is a diplomat. They are business people, really. And therefore, for them to deal with any situation regarding India would be really how does it actually benefit them? What is their interest in the situation? And therefore, from that point of view, we could not expect niceties or the kind of diplomatic language, so to say, from them. But we can expect a complete transparency in terms of behavior. And therefore, Prime Minister Modi, who himself comes from Gujarat, and he understands how to do business, E.M. Jaishankar, who will know how to deal with the finer nuances of the situation, will know how to deal with them. But the fact is, I was reading somewhere today, and I completely agree that our political space is going to increase, but our economic space and the trade could have some restrictions on that, and we may have to deal with them in a slightly more nuanced manner.
Of course, challenges ahead for India and the US, and like you mentioned, Ambassador Goel, you're on point when you say that it's actually, we're going to be dealing with businessmen and not diplomats or career politicians in the United States. But, closing comments from you, General Meston, the fact that an end to the Russia-Ukraine war is very much in the realm of possibility under President Trump. What's your take on this?
Trump had stated within 24 hours he'll finish this war. I somehow feel it is a ridiculous statement to be made by him. It has got a lot of facets. Last evening, Macron had clearly stated we have to now look for a unified Europe. And therefore, Europe, the wars are actually on the doorsteps of Europe. So Europe will be, it will continue funding. In fact, President Trump will definitely cut off military equipment aid, etc. But I think he will be constrained to continue to help. And also, Zelensky has given the statement of the victory plan. Is Zelensky ready? That is also an important issue. Because his victory plan is very clear that the Russians have to pull back from the entire Donbass region, the Crimea region, and then only we'll come back from this Kursk region. So there are a large number of complications. It's not going to be easy. 24 hours, I think, is impossibility. It will take maybe 6 to 8 months. This is what I presume. It's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy indeed, and I think everyone's looking at a rough and rocky road ahead in 2025 when the 47th President of the United States takes office, and certainly it's going to be felt in Canada, where Justin Trudeau shares a not so warm relationship with President Donald Trump and his new best buddy Elon Musk. But thank you very much for joining us this evening, Surinder Singh Lali, Ambassador Goel, General Sanjay Meston, and my colleague Aditya Kaul in the studio here. Climate change is here and it's happening. We've seen severe climate events, record-breaking summer heat, the highest amount of rainfall in the shortest possible time, cyclones with very high intensity winds and flooding. In the mountains, in the countryside, and in the big metro cities, there's been a cost to all of this. Mountains are falling, forests are catching fire, roads and houses are being washed away, and huge number of people and animals have been killed and are at risk. Now, in all of this, there's another aspect to this. Climate change is already proving to be a challenge for security. It does threaten military bases, and adverse climate also makes it harder for the military to do its job of protecting the nation. Now, this impact on military installations and assets also has a bearing on missions and operations of the military. So, in our show today, we're looking at what the new strategic challenges for the military are because of climate change, how military operations are affected, and what could be the possible impact on India, and how it's going to cost us in resources and readiness. Joining me to discuss this are Vice Admiral S.K. Jha, former Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India, and one of India's most respected environmentalists, Deepak Goenka. And in the studio I have with me my colleague, Deepak Bhadana. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show.
Good afternoon.
Deepak, I want to start by asking you this. What prompted you to write this letter to Defence Minister Rajnath Singh asking for a climate change document for the Indian military? Why the Indian military?
Well, it actually started off with the Indian Navy because, as you know, I'm based in Mumbai, and we've been talking about the impact of sea level rise on the city itself. And as you know, the Indian Navy has very important establishments in and around Mumbai.
Yes.
And I realized that, and I mean, you know, and Admiral knows that getting assets for the Indian Navy is a very time-consuming and very expensive process. And also, I was reading about what the US Navy has been doing for many years to plan for the impact of climate change and sea level rise for their assets. And it struck me that, I wasn't quite sure what the Indian Navy was doing to look at the future impact of climate change on their assets. And I had informal discussion with a few officers I know off the record and retired officers as well.
Right.
And they actually told me that some kind of informal discussions have taken place, but it has not really led to any kind of concrete action. So I thought it would be a good idea to draw the attention of our home defense minister to this issue.
Yes.
And see whether our defense forces can factor in climate change in the decision-making process when they're planning bases or upgrading existing bases or buying expensive naval assets, whether these things be factored in. That is what really prompted the letter to the Honorable Raksha Mantri.
Absolutely. And, Admiral Jha, since what Deepak mentioned actually has a naval, bearing, and you've been, of course, Chief Hydrographer to the Government of India, and before that, you coordinated the operations during the tsunami of 2004. And today, nearly 20 years later, we're in the middle of, we're not talking of climate change down the road, but we're actually in the middle of climate change. We're experiencing it, literally on a daily basis. So this point that Deepak made about, future-proofing, say, the Navy from climate change, what are the kind of measures you think the Indian Navy should be looking at, to anticipate the fallout of climate change?
Sandeep, thank you very much for calling me on your show. This is indeed a very, very relevant point. Looking at the way that climatic change is taking place, the way the sea level is rising, if we take the data for the past about 100 years, we'll see about 6 to 7 inches of sea level has risen there, which has affected the entire coastal belt of almost the entire world. Similarly, if you see the severity of the cyclones, the severity of the precipitation, the rain, all that has increased, and it has changed. In our lifetime, it has changed.
Yes.
It has changed manifold. I would probably divide this entire aspect into the two divisions. One would be the purely military aspect.
Right.
In that, we can look at the major installations which is being installed by the country and the Navy as such. That is one. The second is also a certain amount of operational, the requirements will change. The coastal configuration have changed to a certain extent because of the severity of the cyclones.
Yes.
Another aspect which is important, that is because of the change in the temperature, the the sea temperature had changed. Because of that, the sound velocity changes in water, and because of that, the detection parameter changes in the water, which is very crucial for the submarine warfare.
Right.
Whilst all these are being continuously being monitored and taken into account, but one must understand, because of the rise in temperature, the seawater itself is expanding, so the volume is increasing, therefore it is occupying more amount of area. As far as I remember and I understand, all the major installations, when they are installed, certain amount of these factors are taken into account. A buffer zone is created. The inundation maps are created so that suppose you are installing a nuclear power plant, then you definitely take into account, say, if there is a half a meter rise in sea level, water level will go up to which level, and therefore, where should we install it? So these factors are to a certain extent taken into account. But yes, what Mr. Devi is saying is absolutely right. This needs to be looked into very seriously. Reason being that whatever had happened in the last about 100 years, and if you see the data from, say, 1990, 1992, 93, 95 onwards, the changes are very, very rapid.
Right, changes are very rapid. And Devi, I'm going to ask you this because, since you wrote that letter to the RM, what is the kind of blueprint that the armed forces could be looking at, say the military, and specifically in this case, the Indian Navy, because you're talking about rising ocean levels, and as the Admiral mentioned that there are many other changes, of course, that have a bearing on the operations of the military. A very crucial aspect he mentioned was the fact that anti-submarine warfare itself would change. But give us an idea, because you've studied these patterns, you've studied these blueprints across the world. What is the kind of template or a blueprint that you would recommend that the Indian military could look at?
First of all, the rate of increase of sea level rise has been constantly underestimated by everybody. And we are finding that the rate of increase is accelerating day after day. So whatever assumptions were made earlier about sea level rise are probably gross underestimates. The current, my understanding is that probably the sea level rise of 1 meter may happen over the next 30 to 40 years and not over 100 years.
Yes.
That has been predicted. And there's also one very significant prediction which nobody even thinks about, that if all the ice in the Arctic and Antarctic melt, which is likely to happen much faster than we anticipated, the sea level rise may probably go up to even something like 60 meters, 60 meters, which is an incredible figure, which has not even entered the mindset, I think, of 99.9999% of the population.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So at least not 60 meters, we should plan for 1 meter, is my thinking. And the second thing I want to add is it's not just the sea level rise. For example, if you look at the rise in temperature on land, not the sea temperature, but the terrestrial temperature. Now, for example, we have the Army and the Air Force operating in desert-like conditions in Kutch, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and so on and so forth, where the ambient temperatures can go up to 45, 50 degrees Celsius, right? The question is, what kind of equipment will function or malfunction at those temperatures, right?
Yes.
Will an army Jawan be able to hold his rifle if the temperature around him is around 55 degrees centigrade?
Right.
The temperature, the heat of the barrel itself may make it too hot to hold, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So these are all important factors that I think the Defense Ministry needs to start looking at very, very seriously.
Absolutely.
Which is our appeal is to the Raksha Mantri. Please consider all these things.
Please consider global warming, factor it into your military preparations, as environmentalist Devi Goenka just told us. But thank you very much for joining us on the 9 p.m. show, gentlemen. Devi Goenka and, of course, Vice Admiral S.K. Jha. Two village defense guards, Nazir Ahmed and Kuldeep Kumar, were kidnapped and killed by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar. Now, VDGs, formerly known as Village Defense Committees, were set up in the mid-1990s for the self-defense of locals, especially Hindus and vulnerable Muslims, in the remote hill villages of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, the villagers were trained by the Indian Army on using weapons and how to gather intelligence. But why are the VDGs being targeted now in 2024? Earlier this year, News9 Plus's Deepak Bhadana travelled to cover and profile the VDGs in one border area. Let's have a look.
आतंकियों और सुरक्षा बलों के बीच आज दोपहर को मुठभेड़ शुरू हुई। जम्मू संभाग में हाल ही में कई आतंकी हमलों के बाद हाई लेवल सिक्योरिटी बैठक जो है वो होने जा रही है।
There's been a spurt of terror attacks in Jammu over the past few weeks.
चुनौती भरा ऑपरेशन ये सेना के लिए इसलिए भी है क्योंकि रहायशी इलाका है।
3 terrorists were killed in an infiltration bid in Keran sector along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir on Sunday. This is what the Indian Army has said.
Will these fresh militant attacks cast a shadow over the elections in J&K? What is the Pakistan Army chief's game plan?
These terrorists, on the instructions of the establishment or deep state of Pakistan, they laid an ambush on the vehicle which was full of Yatri to send him clear message that we are here and we can undertake an attack.
India is witnessing a new battle against terror, and the people manning the front lines this time are not soldiers. They're not security personnel or vigilantes even. They are India's village defense guards.
Now, Deepak joins me in the studio here to discuss VDGs. Deepak, why are VDGs now in the crosshairs of the militants? 2 of them were picked up and brutally murdered by terrorists.
Well, there are 2 ways to look at it. To begin with, simply to sow seeds of terror.
Right.
It's a campaign to intimidate any opposition.
Yes.
And the first line of opposition is in fact the VDGs, who are actually protecting their homes. These aren't people who are motivated by ideology or, about gain.
Yes.
They're protecting their homes, and this is why they're being targeted.
What's the government strategy for VDGs, Deepak, in 2024? I understand they've been around since 1996, but in 2024, have they been given new weapons, new equipment, new training?
So actually, 2024, or rather the end of 2023, started, you saw the beginning of training, further training for the VDGs. So earlier, since 1996, they were using the 303, which was the standard issue weapon for the Jammu and Kashmir police.
Right, bolt action rifles.
Yes,
right.
World War II vintage weapon, and they're fairly proficient with it.
Right. And it's a good weapon.
Yeah, if you were fighting at ranges, it's actually a better weapon than most assault rifles.
Right.
So from the end of 2023, the government, or there were rather demands from different sections, including retired officers who talked about providing SLRs, the L1 SLR. Which is presently in use by the Jammu and Kashmir Special Operations Group.
Right.
So training is being done even now, although it's not complete for all the villages.
Yes.
And steps are being taken to procure these from the services and to pass them on to the village defense guards.
Is there, when you were there with them in Riyasi, Deepak, was there a sense of despondency among the village defense, guards, as in they're not being given enough equipment or they're not being seen as frontline fighters? What was the mood, when you profiled them there in that documentary?
So the mood, it swings from one extreme to another. To begin with, they're fairly motivated because they know they're fighting for the safety of their families and for the sanctity of their homes.
Right.
So they're very prompt to take up arms to protect their families.
Yes.
But on the flip side of the argument is the fact that these are everyday people. These aren't soldiers.
Right.
Some of the people that I met, one of them was a tailor.
Right.
Another one was a plumber.
Right. So they're like weekend warriors, or they,
who've been forced to pick up arms.
Right.
Right. So one of their constant complaints that I came across was the fact that they don't really have the time to spend 12 hours a day patrolling.
Right.
These are people who need to earn their livelihoods.
Right.
Presently, the government gives, stipends of up to say 3,000 or 4,000 per VDG.
Yes.
So there are demands that if the government could move the figure to say something like 16, 17, it would still, be give them some semblance of sustainability.
Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's civilians, Deepak, villagers who are picked up arms to protect their homes and their families and indeed their villages. And we are remembering these two very brave village defense guards, Nazir Ahmed and Kuldeep Kumar, who were defending their villages when they were picked up and brutally murdered by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar district.